Thanks for tuning in. It's beginner beekeeping Q&A today, so if you've got questions, put it in the comments and we'll get to answering those. It's this time of month we like to dedicate an hour-long live stream to beginner beekeeping questions, so chime in, no such thing as a silly question. It's a safe spot to ask away, and we've got an amazing global community as well, and thanks to all of you who chime in and help answer all the questions. And while you're thinking of your questions, let's just harvest a little bit of honey with our flow hive, which is my father and I's invention. We'll have a look in the windows first, and you can see that this hive is stacked with honey. There is so much honey in here. Springtime down under, and we do need to remove a bit of honey. It's a good idea because that makes space in the hive for the bees to move honey that might be down here where the queen needs to lay her eggs. And it'll move it up to the top, and then there'll be more space for the queen to lay. And that limits the chance of your hive dividing itself in half and half of them flying off in what is called a swarm. So we could pick a frame, any frame, and we might choose this one here. We're taking out these little caps, and we're just going to harvest 2 frames today. And if we're lucky, we'll get a lot of honey in this jar here. So all I'm doing to harvest the honey is put this key in the bottom slot here and turn it. And sometimes it's hard to turn. Today it's not really, so you could do the whole thing in one go if you want, but segmenting it like that makes it a lot easier to turn that key. And pretty soon we will start to see honey coming down this little tube here. I can already see it just starting now, so it's pretty exciting. Looks like we've got these spring flavours here, quite a light honey coming down the tube. We've had things like the privet and the wild quince flowering, which have been amazing, really bright, light coloured honey. If you've got questions, put it in the comments. Beginner beekeeping today, no such thing as a silly question. Chime in, let us know what's on your mind, and also let us know whereabouts in the world you are tuning in from. It's fascinating to us having people in all areas of the world tuning in, asking questions, and also letting us know different things about beekeeping in their areas. Beautiful. So that's the honey starting to come out of that tube, and that's the point where I can get a little taste. Beautiful. Wow, that is good. I do love honey, and that's the wild quince, which is a really blow your taste buds off flavour. And what's exciting is each frame will often have really quite different flavours of honey. Now, if I move on to another frame here, let's see what we get. So here I am inserting don't forget to put the little tube in, otherwise you'll make a big mess. And turning this key like that, that's it. And do it in segments to make it easier. And you want to stop at that 90 point there, which is where that key is putting pressure on all the parts to lift them and turn hexagon cells into channels. And we've got the honey streaming out here with a different colour. It's a little bit darker in this frame, so that'll have a different flavour, which it's simply because the bees are foraging on different things when they filled up this frame compared to when they filled up this one. Beautiful. We are going to give you a demonstration of our super lifter, which is a device we more recently invented. Well, we invented it over the last 7 years, but we've now got it out helping people, and it gets a lot of amazing and quite touching feedback as it helps people with what is the next arduous task in beekeeping. We solved the honey harvesting with our turnkey solution here, and then the next one that was the most requested thing is lifting the heavy boxes. So we have that to show you today as well, and we'll show you on a double box full of honey and show you how we have extension handles as well to make it even easier. Any questions coming in?
Yes, it's For people getting started, how do you go about getting your bees? Where do you get your bees from?
Okay, so great question, and it might be a good idea soon to do a live stream dedicated to installing your bees for the first time. So there's quite a few different ways to get started. One of the most common is called a nucleus, where you get a going little mini hive off a beekeeper. It's often just in a core flute box, and it'll have about half as many frames that fit in this bottom brood box here. And it's usually just wood and wax with a queen laying eggs. It's got your honey and pollen stores, everything a little hive needs. And all you do is transport it to your location in the garden or your rooftop or balcony or wherever you are situating your hive, and you put it there, and in your own time, it might be in a week or two, you get in your bee suit, you fire up your smoker, and we'll show you how to do that shortly. You put on your bee gloves if you're new to beekeeping, and transfer those frames from what's called the nucleus hive into just the bottom box here. And if you look after them, from there they'll grow, and when they are using all the frames in your bottom box, that's when it's time to put the super on. So that's probably the most common and easiest way to get started, but you can also take a split from a friend, which is a great thing to do. You can also buy what's called a package, which is like an artificial swarm that is in the that will arrive in the mail, or you can go catch a swarm, or there's another one called a bait hive, where you just set up your hive and hope for the bees to move in. Now that can work if you're near a bunch of other hives in the springtime, and you can do things like put a little lemongrass oil in there to mimic one of the pheromones of the bees and help attract those scout bees that are looking for a new home. And you can sometimes get a successful catch, although I wouldn't recommend that as the way to get started. I would say go for the nucleus or the split or the package. So options there, get your bees locally, and local knowledge is also good for your seasonality and learning about different parts of the seasons and when you might need to give your bees a helping hand.
Great, Seeds. Lots of people asking, Cedar, today about when you're harvesting. Is it like crushing the bees? Is it hurting the larvae? Need a bit of an explanation on when you're harvesting the flow frames.
Okay, so that's a great question. So down in the bottom box here, we've just got wooden wax frames the way it's always been, and there's a queen excluder here. So the queen isn't up here in the flow frames, our invention frames with the moving parts. So the queen is down here, so that therefore you don't get larvae up there. And some people choose to run without an excluder, and some queens won't lay in flow frames, so that's a possibility as well, but we recommend using your queen excluder just in case we don't want the queen laying larvae in the flow frames. As you point out, if the mechanism moves and there's larvae in there, that's not good. So all of your babies are down here, the way it's always been. Next question, what if there's bees down the cells? Now, ideally you are harvesting when it's capped like this, but you can't always guarantee that. Sometimes there's a piece missing where maybe they've gotten a little hungry and they've chewed it out, and there might be bees working down those cells. So what we did is we put space in between the moving parts, and we've got a whole patent dedicated to it. With our 10-year journey of inventing, we put a lot of thought and a lot of effort into how to make this as gentle as possible. And thanks Sophie, she's just given me one of our flow frames. So here it is here, and how this works, if we grab this flow key here, then if you're looking down the cells, you might need to switch around so you've got the light on that side. So about that angle, you should be seeing hexagon cell shapes. Give us a thumbs up if you can see the hexagon cells. Now, I'm going to put the key in just a little way, as if we're harvesting just one jar of honey, and see if you can see the difference as to what happens when I move the key. Can you see those zigzagging pathways formed, and next to it you can see still the hexagons. Now that's the invention, and what we did to make sure that it was as gentle as possible on the bees is if you have a look down here, there's a lot of gaps, and there's a V-shaped gap there in between all the moving parts, so that if bees are down the cells and you open it, they're fine. But we found in some of our early prototypes when we closed it again and there wasn't that V-shaped gap, then a leg or a wing could get caught in those moving parts. So we put the gap there like that, if you like, so they have to bridge the top and bottom of each cell with their own wax, and that way there's not the moving parts catching the bee's knees, if you like. So that was an important part of inventing, and that works very well. At worst you could get some bees stuck in their own wax and the other bees dig them out. So that V-shaped gap was what made that harvesting gentle, even if there is some bees down the cells. Keep the questions coming in.
Great. So where do bees go in the wintertime?
Okay, so bees in our winter just keep doing their thing. They get good nectar flows all winter. We don't really get a winter here as far as Apis mellifera, the European honeybee, is concerned. However, you're probably referring to cold climates where you've got snowy, cold winters. And what the bees do is they change into a hibernation mode. So the bees will actually raise bees coming into winter that have a higher fat body so they can last longer. And what happens is the bees will cluster together, they'll consume remaining honey, and that's why you need to leave stores for the bees for a long cold winter. And they then disconnect their wing muscles and they shiver, if you like. And that shivering creates a little bit of heat, and those bees are called heater bees, and they will keep the colony warm enough to survive. If it's really cold, the queen will stop laying, so there's no mouths to feed, and they're in a hibernation cluster. And they'll move up through the hive, consuming any stores that are there to fuel themselves through that long cold winter. And for that reason, in those colder areas, the minimum thing you'll need to do to prepare your hive for winter is take out that queen excluder so the queen can move up with the cluster and survive the long cold winter.
Great. So this hive has got ant caps on it, so the question is, can you get ant feet for the original, like the classic flow hive, or how do you go about putting ant caps on in a classic flow hive?
So the way you would do that is swap the base out for one of our new bases that has all the bells and whistles. It has the pest management tray down here, the levels in the side, the leg kit, and as you point out, the ant guards there, which you can open up by winding the top cap up, and you can put some oil or Vaseline in there in order to create that ant barrier, and brush the bees off from under the roof, behind the covers, and make sure there's no foliage touching the hive. Do that a couple of times and the ant problem will go away for a while.
So Slobodan has tuned in from Serbia, so welcome. And just wondering, talking about when they're harvesting honey the traditional way, often bees are coming around to take all the honey. How come they don't seem to do that with the flow hive?
Okay, well they can actually, and it's a good thing to notice if the bees are a bit hungry. Let's say they don't have, at the moment there's lots of flowers around, that's why they're not coming here. They're not looking for a sweet source to replace flower nectar. And what we do if they are coming around and finding the honey is we cover up the jars to make sure the bees can't get in. Now if we're walking away and doing some other stuff, which we are in a second, we're going to show you our super lifter invention, then do cover up those jars. So we could do that now. Now, interestingly enough, right on your point, a bee has jumped in the jar, and so it might be a good idea to cover up the jars. But if you do get a bee in the jar, they will survive a very long time just swimming in honey, and it's as simple as putting it back there on the landing board, and you will find that the other bees will be very quick and interested just to clean them up, and away they go. So you can use anything for jar covers, but what we tend to use is these wax wraps because they're reusable. So it's as simple as putting them over the top of the jars like this, and just making sure there's no gaps for bees to get in like that. Pinching it under the tube there, and away you go. You could use some netting, you could use some plastic kitchen wrap if you want to, whatever you've got. And that just keeps it nice and versatile, where you can then use any sort of shape jars. Some people do some plumbing and use pipes and things, but we just like to keep it simple like that. The whole idea with the flow hive is we've simplified the honey harvesting, and now with our new invention we've simplified the lifting. So what we do is we think up inventions to make beekeeping easier and more fun, and in this case a gentle harvesting and really beautiful harvesting process. So people often ask, is the flow hive suitable for beginners? And it's absolutely. You no longer need to set up a whole processing shed, which is often in people's garages or houses, and that involves like the centrifuge spinner, which is a big expensive piece of machinery. It involves stainless steel benches, decapping knives, sieving buckets, comb scrapers, all of the things that if you're a conventional beekeeper you know well. None of that you need anymore. It's all built in right here. And all of that mess and all of that stuff and maintaining all of that stuff and cleaning all of that stuff is no longer needed. It's all just here with the turnkey harvesting. So that's why it got so much attention when we first launched and just about broke the internet. If you don't know that story, look that one up. Now, we're going to light a smoker, and we'll show you how to do that if you've never done it. And also, we will then use our new super lifter invention. So the honey's harvesting itself. We've covered the jars. We can walk away now. Okay, so lighting a smoker. Now this can be a fun thing to learn about. First of all, I'm going to tip out the remaining debris there. And in here, I'm just going to use some garden mulch because it's what we have. Now the trick with it is you don't want to put too much in. So when you first light it, just put a little bit in. If you stuff it full, it'll go out. So you can use a blowtorch, but you can also use just any matches or whatever you've got. But this will make it a little bit quicker because what we're trying to get going is some coals and some flames. Now we're squeezing the bellows there to really get that fire going. And sometimes this mulch is actually slightly wet, but it's going. Some people like to use a bit of cardboard or a bit of paper to get it started, and that will help as well. Steer away from anything with really heavy print on it. But I didn't actually get the fire going there. So I'm going to light it again, just to speed things up a bit. It's a little bit damp actually, but we'll get it going. So I'm squeezing it, and squeezing these bellows, the important thing is you want to get that fire going. If I just stuff it full of mulch right now, it'll go out for sure, and you'll need to start again. And then you just slowly add a little bit of mulch to it, loosely packed at first, and once it's really going, you can pack it a bit more later. So there we go. Now if you're going gloveless, you can add a bit of smoke to your hands, And if you're beginning in beekeeping, at this point you want to put on your bee suit, making sure you are well sealed all around this neck area. Now, I like the bee jacket because I'm wearing pants, but oftentimes people are liking the full suit. So we have those options available to you. I really do recommend the mesh because it's nice and cool, and also more protective because it's got that distance between the layers for a bee they don't tend to try and sting through that. Okay, so we get our smoker going, and then we come to the entrance. So what I like to do is make sure some smoke actually goes into the hive by putting the nozzle right up. I probably grew up with really grumpy bees where this was an important step. Some people just like to waft it around the entrance, then leave that smoker there so the returning foragers get a whiff of the smoke. And what that does is it changes the mood in the hive from being protective to one of being more calm. So smoke's an important tool for both calming bees and also moving bees out of the way when you're beekeeping. Beautiful. Okay, at this point I can add a bit more wet mulch. There we go. It's better if it's dry, it'll light up a bit easier. Okay, next we have our super lifter, and I'll show you how this works. It comes in a nice little carry bag like that, and you open it up, and what you've got is two handles, which I do recommend you get. That's an extension, and you've also got the super lifter itself. Now, if I'm using a double box, I do want to connect those handles to the hive. Now, all you need to get either a standard Langstroth or your flow hive ready for the super lifter is some of these strong load point screws that have a double head. So I'm going to lift both of these boxes off the bottom one. So to do that, I'm going to put on the handle here just by winding out this little bee-winged butterfly screw. There we go. And here, same thing. It'll give us two nice handles, which makes it easy. You can do it without, but really people are loving it who have the handle extensions. Okay, so all I do now, and it does take a little bit of getting used to this if you're using it for the first time, but once you've got it, it's very fast. So all I'm going to do is pick it up by these handles and let it drop into that position. So that's what you're looking for. You're rolling your wrists in. It should look like that. And it's hanging there on that angle, which is the perfect angle. Hardly need to bend down, and I can connect that right onto the hive like that. So we've designed it so you don't even have to bend down. Now I've got this handle here, which is step 2, and it's step 2, sorry, is that one there. And now we are lifting up this handle, and see how it's cracking the hive boxes apart. That used to be a real pain, and you had to chisel and then lift and chisel and lift, and it was so awkward and hard for people. Now this device does it for you without you even having to think about it. And all you need to do is roll that around and set up that leg there. Now you want to make sure it's all the way in and set up to max height, and then it's just a case of coming around to this side and lifting like this. Now see, I've got that now, and it's little effort. I've just got my thumb there lifting that double box, which is quite full of honey, and now I can take a step down the side of the hive and it will rest on the little stand like that. And there we have it. We are now beekeeping without all of that hard work of chiseling the boxes apart. So this hive we took a split from, and I was reading the notes on it, and there was a question whether the queen stayed behind or went with the split. So let's just have a look and see if this hive is queen right. So we'll blow a little more smoke in, and next we're going to grab our hive tool and have a look what we have in the bottom here. If you've got questions, put it in the comments and we'll get to answering those. Also let us know whereabouts in the world you are. So I've got the J-Hive tool, which is a very important tool in beekeeping. It's got a chisel at one end and a hook on the other. So the chisel end we use for separating frames like this. And now the J end goes underneath. So there we go. The first frame slowly, gently can come up. Now we also have frame rests that work with the super lifter. Thanks, Trace. And we'll put those on. There was a question. Straight away I'm seeing what I want to see, and that's brood here. That is great. There's a question somebody said, but how do you make these work with the super lifter? Now that's exactly what we've designed them for. Okay, the bees are getting a little bit grumpy about me pulling that frame out. What I might do is give them a little bit more smoke. Now, if you're new to beekeeping at this point, put your gloves on. I'm going to get this smoker going a little more with that wet mulch and give them a little more smoke. There we go. Give them a little more smoke if they're starting to show aggressive tendencies. And here we go. This is how it works. Just there like that. And the other one can go here. So nice little trinket. You don't need to have it, but it's a nicety to have somewhere to rest your frames as you do your beekeeping. So this is the first frame out. What I'm seeing is brood. It's fantastic. And I'm seeing young larvae in this section here. So straight away I know a queen must have laid some eggs recently for that larvae to be there, because it's worker brood larvae, and I'm happy that this hive is queen right. So that's one of the main things you're looking for, is there brood and young larvae down the cells. There's a lot of pollen too, which is exciting. Look at all of that pollen in here, all the different colours. That's the bee's protein source. They collect it from the flowers, they come back, they then turn it into bee bread by adding their enzymes, their special sauce, topping it with honey and letting it ferment. And that's the primary food for the young worker brood larvae. Getting a little waggle here, a little waggle dance. It's not moving in circles, so it's not giving us direction. It's telling us something else. Perhaps it's a come and groom me waggle, but you can even get to the point where you can understand the dance and the direction that the bees are giving to the rest of the hive in terms of forage, nectar and pollen, how far away it is, what direction it is, by learning to decode the dance of the honeybee, called the waggle dance. Okay, beautiful. We've found out what we need to know, but we'll pull a few more frames just for show and tell, and we'll answer some questions. Has anybody got questions?
Yes, so just a question on the smoker. Just wondering, was about like how tall is the smoker, and do different sizes of the smokers matter? And also, have you got any thoughts on smokeless smokers? Is there such a thing? I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh.
So this is a smoker we've been doing for many years. We get very, very little issues with them, so we've continued to do them. We've managed to get it down to almost no complaints about our smoker, which is a hard thing to do with smokers. So you'll most likely find that this one will do you really well. It's got a inner basket, which is handy just to keep the fire burning a bit longer, and it's got the grill here to stop things of light coming out the front, and of course your bellows at the back. But yes, you can get taller smokers that can have more fuel in them to last longer, and all sorts of things. It's up to you, but this one is a very reliable piece of kit. And in terms of smokeless smokers, there is an emerging area. Now, I have experimented a little bit, and I was a little bit underwhelmed, but it's not to say that there isn't people having good experiences with the smokeless smokers. It's a bit like a vape, if you like. And it may take off as being a good thing. Let us know if you're using the smokeless smokers or the vaporizers and how that is going for you as a beekeeper. Okay.
Seeds, we were talking about ants before, and Keith's just wondering, with those ants, do they harm the brood nest?
No, there are some ants apparently somewhere in the world that can be a harm to your colony, but in our area, most places in the world, ants won't exist inside the hive. The bees will certainly keep them out of the hive, and they're only a cosmetic issue for us, getting underneath the roof and behind the windows, and people don't like that, so we came up with the ant guards to stop them nesting. Typically wet weather like we've had recently, they'll come up the hive and they'll find a place out of the ground to lay some eggs and form their colony. So a little bit of TLC in the ant guards and your problem will go away till next time. So here, what do we have? A nice frame of brood with glistening nectar above it. Beautiful. Looking really good. So that's a fairly new frame, hasn't been used many times. We can tell by the light colour. When the frames get really old and almost black in terms of the beeswax, that's when we like to move them to the edge, so when there's no more brood in them we can cycle that frame out. Or in our case, where we use naturally drawn comb, because we're not spinning these frames in a centrifuge, we no longer need the foundation wax or plastic in the frames, it's just a wooden surrounds. We can just cut the old wax out right here in the field and put this straight back in and solve that and not have to do that workshop processing step that I used to do too much of. On our frame rests there, for those that don't know, these frame rests are a new thing. They work very nicely with the super lifter, and they're designed to go around the super lifter arm like that. Okay, keep the questions coming in. We got beginner beekeeping today, no such thing as a silly question. We're in the brood nest, checking that this hive does indeed have a laying queen, and while we haven't seen her yet, we've certainly seen evidence of her with some nice shining young larvae down the cells and some capped worker brood.
Right. So it's Happy Hounds and Islands asking a couple of questions about jars. Probably best to contact customer support about that one. But also wondering, can you use the super lifter on a Langstroth hive with the handles?
Absolutely. So we wanted to design something. We went through a 7-year kind of development curve. We probably took too long, but we really wanted to tick some boxes with our lifter and make sure it was really good. And many designs had things like drawer slides where your frames rolled right out of the hive and rolled back in again. All of that filing cabinet style stuff seems obvious, but in actual fact it's a bit of a pain. And what we ended up thinking was, while we could get that working, and it's quite a lot of expense to build into every single hive, how about we just design something that works with standard hives, flow hives, conventional hives, and you can just have one of them and then open all your hives. So that's why we came up with this concept where you walk up and literally in 10 seconds you can have the hive open in a much easier way than you're used to, and away you go beekeeping. Now up here could be 2 10-frame deeps like you see here today. The roof could also be full of honey and you can still lift that over like that. You could also have a mix of ideals, and you might have 4 ideals here or 3 ideals or whatever, how you like to configure it. We've designed it to be capable to do various configurations, and there's a little bit of a learning curve with that, but we've got plenty of instructions in the manual to show you how to configure it if you've got odd size boxes and conventional Langstroths. But all you're doing is adding this screw here, and if you're using deeps it'll just be central in the box. both for the handle side or the lift side. So we could lift it in the other direction as well. It doesn't really matter. We could set it up on the other side and lift that way. And why we wanted to make that standardized was so that, let's say there's something in a way and you can't lift in one direction, then you could lift it in the other. And it just gives you a bit more choice like that. So I've thought probably way too much about it, but here it is, and it actually is getting so many touching reviews coming in for people that really found the lifting of the boxes to look after their brood prohibitive for their beekeeping. And for many it's extended their beekeeping life perhaps well into the future. And also young people who are fit and strong are really loving it as well. So you don't have to be, I guess, even if you're strong, it really does help you as well. So just simply because it makes it easier and quicker. Beautiful. We have a few more frames here. We may as well look in. This is double brood, so we could then close it and look in the next box too if we wanted to. Now I typically don't do double broods, but in colder climates they do. So we set this hive up with a double brood just for show and tells basically. The reason why I don't like to do it is there's 2 boxes to look through then if you need to find the queen. But in cold climates they like to have a double brood just so you can get bigger colonies in the big boom of the springtime, but also they often store a lot of honey in that brood nest as well, which is useful for a long cold winter. Shining larvae down the cells, more brood. This hive is doing really well despite us taking a split from it recently, which is a great thing to do in the springtime. It's taking splits from your busy hives. That's, in my opinion, the best way to manage your colonies and make sure you are limiting the chance of half the bees taking off to find a new home, which is their natural division called a swarm. Any more questions, Trace?
Yep. Fred's joined in. Fred Dunn. Hey Fred, how
Fred.
are you? Now his question is, Cedar, how many years do you keep your brood frames prior to rotating them out?
Okay, so typically it's nice to keep them in the hive no longer than a couple of seasons, and you can often tell when they're getting really old just visually. Let's see if we can find one in this hive. So you can see here this is very light comb, meaning that it's in its first season here. The bees have drawn that wax. You can even tell by the top bar's light as well. Looks like a fresh frame that was thrown in. Now if we look through for an older frame, the wax will be a lot darker. Now, I'm not sure if we're going to find one in this hive, but the idea is when you see them getting really old and the wax is dark brown, then just move that frame to the edge, and then next time you come back, if there's no brood in it, typically they put the honey stores on the edges or pollen stores, then you can cut that comb out and put the frame straight back in, or if you're using foundation, you'll have a pre-prepared one to swap it with. Look at that. So that is darker in colour, but it's still that brown colour, not dark brown. And it's looking really good. That's a beautiful brood pattern when you see it right across the frame. If you want to shake bees off to get a better look, then the best way to do that is diagonally across the box like this, so that all your bees, and if the queen was on there, she'd fall straight back into the hive. So like that, give them a good shake, gets most of the bees off, and you can get a better look. And look at that brood pattern, isn't that just beautiful? That's a typical thing in springtime with a good healthy queen where she's laying like clockwork, and you've got a lot of brood in the frames. Every single one of those is going to emerge in the next little over a week, they'll all be new bees in the hive, ready to take on the chores. So they're all worker brood. Okay. So Fred's tuned in, and he's way up north in America in a very cold area. Let us know how you like to keep bees, or give us a link to your configuration, how you like to keep the bees in your area. So you've got a brood box, and then from memory you usually like to put an ideal on top of that, and then the flow super. So this middle box, if you like, would be replaced with an ideal, and the super lifter works with that configuration as well. And one advantage of that is it's a honey barrier, if you like, and you're very unlikely to get the queen laying up in your flow super, and then you can not have to use the queen excluder. And that just allows a bit more easy through traffic and potentially more honey stores if you don't have an excluder in place. Beautiful. We're going to start putting this hive back together now, and then go and have a look at our little honey harvest we started with. Is there any more questions?
See, to Ashley's one, who just purchased the first flow hive yesterday, and just wondering, once they get their bees and they're all settled in, how long does it usually take before you could harvest some honey? I'm not quite sure where they are.
Okay, so that's a great question. In the springtime it can happen very quickly, so the shortest time we see it happening is like within a month. They've put the bees in, they've got stores in the flow frame ready to harvest. However, you also get the opposite end of the spectrum, where you may find that your bees don't even store enough honey for you to share in a whole season. And usual is somewhere in between. So in our area, where we get pretty much a year-round honey season, we could average harvesting all the frames in our flow super a couple of times a year, which will give you a lot of honey, and some hives will well outperform that and others will be underperforming. And having multiple hives really does help, because it helps you benchmark which ones are doing really well and which ones might need some assistance, or perhaps even a new queen. Okay, we're going to push these frames back together. It's important to make sure you're maintaining what's called the bee space, and the bee space is a space that the bees always like to keep so they can work back to back between the frames, which works out to be about 9 millimeters when they're working back to back, and they will shorten it up to 6 millimeters on the edge when they are just working not back to back, but just a single layer of bees. So squeezing your frames together and leaving any excess space on the edge is an important thing, because that maintains the bee space, and the frames are about right for your bee space. So when you squeeze them together, that will automatically do the spacing for you. Listen to the sound that the bees make when you first add a little more smoke. They really fire up for a second, and then they get more calm. Have a listen. I'll put my microphone close. Give us a thumbs up if you could hear that. Now, I guess getting smoke blown in your face might rile you up, but it also seems to have a calming effect, and it'll move bees out of the way so you don't squash them as you're working. Okay. Any more questions?
Steve, have you got any tips? Hunter's tuning in from the east coast of Canada and has had 2 seasons, but the bees haven't produced any honey. Any tips, any ideas? What could be going on there?
Okay, 2 seasons, no honey. That's unfortunate, and that speaks to something being amiss, whether it being climate related. Sometimes you can get just it didn't rain and the flowers didn't flower to produce the nectar. Well, not enough in order for you to share honey too, but it sounds like enough to keep your hive going. So your hive's had enough stores to keep themselves going, but not excess for you to share. So have a look at the climatic factors and benchmark that against other beekeepers in the area and see what their honey season was like. If you're in Canada, chime in, let us know what the last 2 years was like. So that can be useful to understand. And if other people were getting lots of honey in your area, it can be quite specific to your exact location as well. 2 hours drive away might be very different climatically in terms of the flowers. Now, assuming other people were getting honey and you weren't, then the next things you'll be looking at are genetics. Do you have a queen that lays lots of eggs and really makes a booming population with nice productive bees? So, but another thing that could happen with the queen is she could be aging, she could be in the last years of her life and not laying as many eggs anymore. So one thing you could do is take the queen away and replace with a new queen that usually comes in a little queen cage. I think I've got one in my pocket here, like that. So you can buy them, they'll come in the mail from a breeder with a really nice productive queen, and hopefully gentle and hygienic too. And she's already mated, so her genetics are set, and you'll be putting that, after you've taken the old queen away, then wait a day for the hive to realise they don't have a queen, then add the new one like this. And you're squeezing it between the frames, keeping this on the upside but slightly downward angled like that. So if the candy melts in the end, then it won't drip onto your queen, it'll drip out. Now the bees will chew away that candy block and your queen will be released a day or two later, and by that time your hive's gotten used to the to the pheromones of your new queen and much more likely to accept her. So replacing the queen is probably what I would recommend, but other things that could affect it are perhaps your hive is weakened by pests such as varroa, or you may have chalk brood, for instance, is a spore producing fungus that can get in, and you'll know if you got them because you'll see a whole lot of little chalky mummies dropping. So look for pests and disease, but probably my guess would be replacing the queen would increase your chances of a really good honey season next time. Okay, so to close this up, we want to push all the frames together like this, so leaving the excess space on either side, as we were talking about earlier with the bee space. Now, you may, if you're a conventional beekeeper, you might get our flow hive, set it up and say, hey, why have you got so much space on the edges? Now, as you can see here, after they get all waxy and popularized, you actually don't have as much space as you thought you did, and you'll really appreciate it. Now, 10 frame layings, which is what this size is, we made a little bit more space in them because as a conventional beekeeper, I used to always run 9 in my 10 frames simply because it was too hard to get the last frame in. So that's a nice thing too. We can always fit that 10th frame in our hives, and that is a great thing for your brood nest. We also have the smaller size box, which is very popular as well, which is the 8 frame laying. Now here's our little harvesting shelves. They just pull off really easily. A little note on them, we've got a rubber pad here that you can switch around if you have thicker wood on the classic hives or perhaps a conventional hive. So that just pulls off and switches around. And they're a very handy little widget for doing your brood inspections. Now I'm going to seize the moment. There's no bees on this back edge, and that's the only place that the box is going to close at first. Now grabbing these handles, leaning back a little bit, you'll notice I can lift that double box and roof with ease, and what I'm doing is just lining it up here like that, and all we need to do now, in fact we can take off those handles because we no longer need them on there. And what we can do is walk around the other side of the hive, and I'll show you how to do a nice, gentle, slow close, which people have been very happy about with their super lifter, because waddling up to your hive with a big heavy box, and you're never carrying two of them, you're carrying one 10 frame deep is quite enough, and it can be very heavy like this is today. This hive, it has a lot of honey. If we look in the windows, actually that one is still filling up. And what you can do now is add just a little bit of smoke, getting the bees out of the way. You can use your brush, you can close this as gently as you like, or you can close it quickly if you're in a hurry. But have a look at this. If I then collapse the pole leg, then I move it around, I've got the hive there. See that moving up and down? So that can be a very slow, controlled closure of the hive. And I can make sure the bees are out of the way. You can have a little look around, and sometimes you'll need to add a bit of smoke, but there you go. Beautiful, gentle closure of the hive. The lifter comes off, pack it up like that, or you're straight on to your next hive. Back to our little honey harvest. Oh, it looks like we are getting a lot of honey here. Look at that, beautiful. So looks like we're about to overflow. No, perfection. Look at that. We have full jars of honey. These big pasta jars hold about 2 litres, and they're fun to harvest into because they really show off the colour of your honey, which if we have a look at this, let's just take these covers off. That was to say bees wouldn't get into the honey as we were harvesting. And what we want to do is do well, first of all, let's close the frame. So key comes out, back in the top slot. And what we want to do, make sure it goes all the way to the back, and then turn it. There we go. That's the right spot. There we go. And now all of those flow frame parts are going back into position. Tip, leave it there for a minute or two while you're packing up, and that way all the parts will be pushed into their correct position rather than perhaps staying a bit out of line. Now this is the only bit of mess to clean up, and that's a beautiful thing to be able to taste the honey. Don't leave it in your garden, you don't want to promote bees robbing. Beautiful, look at that, perfection. Now let's have a look and see what the other honey looks like. So we can move this key now to here. Close this one off. And again, we're just doing the quick swap here so that we don't even spill a drop of honey. And we can now have a look at our honey and take that back to our kitchen table. There's no more processing that it needs, and it is ready for the table. Look at the colour difference, and the flavour was super bright in this one, and it was more malty in this one. So the bees have simply foraged on different flowers. We'll get that in the sunlight, you'll see that, the beautiful colours. And I love honey, and I love tasting all of the differences, and one unexpected benefit with the Flow Hive was being able to isolate frame by frame and really bring that honey back to the table. Look at that, a single frame worth, and another frame. We could go ahead and harvest more. You get one of these per frame, and that's an extraordinary amount of honey for an insect to be producing. It's such an incredible thing. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks to all of you who are chiming in, helping answer questions. Big thanks to those experts chiming in. Fred Dunn's on the thread, and he's got loads of information for you, especially in those colder regions right up in the north. Same time next week, we'll have a great show and tell for you. If you are chiming in, helping answer, it's amazing to see the community helping each other. And again, a big thank you. See you again next week.